This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Welcome to the weekend. It's Saturday. Yesterday on a live stream, I was asked about a couple of Dumble style pedals, and coincidentally, I'd already started this video, so I kind of wanted to bring it forward. What I think are some of the best Dumble pedals that I've tried. Now, of course, we all know that the Dumble sound can be captured in the pedal, right? So I guess we'll get that out of the way to start off with. Like, there's lots of Dumble sounds. The pedals are not going to be exactly the same as like a 200 grand amp, all that sort of stuff. But I think some of us have it in mind, like what one of these pedals might sound like. And it's quite an interesting story about how these first started. So I guess just let's get into it. Why did the Dumble amp, the ODS, to me that's what I think of as like the Dumble sound. The ODS initially came from Dumble standing in a room, supposedly, watching Robben Ford playing, and he was inspired by it. I think the rig at the time was something like a Tubescreamer into a Bassman, and he was so inspired by it that he decided that that would be his mission to try and put that into an amp format. Obviously, Robben Ford then used that. The interesting thing about this pedal stuff is that the same thing happened again, where basically Alfonso Hermida built this pedal to try and sound like Robin in a box. This was back in 2004. This is a guy that used to work for NASA, so I think this would be the starting point for me, maybe, especially if you're using humbuckers, which I think is the key to getting the Zendrive to work personally. Don't be afraid to turn that voice control all the way up. The tip from a pro player. Robben Ford obviously ended up essentially replacing the drive channel on this Dumble with this. Yeah, has never kicked it off his board. So I think a Zendrive is the place to start. I have had a couple of the Love pedal versions. I didn't get on with them quite the same as this one, although I've not tried them in my current incarnation and through my current rigs. So I guess in the future maybe I'll try this, but this is an original Zendrive, which at one point did get very expensive, but now they're kind of affordable-ish, like £200-300. So that's an original Zendrive. Yes, I would say that this is also pretty much the starting point for most other Dumble style pedals, right? Most of them. And it's got something in common with Tubescreamer, as you'd expect. I think Robin's thing is that he turns the gain up to just about where it starts to change the tone. Originally as well, Alfonso started off with a higher gain pedal called the Nosferatu, which Robben thought had too much gain, and Alfonso said he was listening to an earlier record where Robben was playing with more gain, which is kind of like me, where Talk to Your Daughter has a lot more gain on it than later stuff. It's basically where all of this started from. In 2008, someone asked Van Weelden, Peter Van Weelden is his name, if he'd be able to build something like a Dumble style drive that would work with lots of different amps, and this is what he came up with. It has nearly 400 parts in it. Essentially what he says is that he was quite surprised when he started looking into this, that most Dumble things at the time were sort of very closely linked to a Tubescreamer. And you take from that, I guess, that the Royal Overdrive is maybe not. One thing I will say about this is that in a video, people oftentimes don't necessarily exactly love the sound that comes across from this. What I will say is that he describes it as having like an elastic feel to it, and sponginess. And I would say that this captures that more than any of these other pedals. Not that there was much of that in any Dumble clones that I've played personally, but it's the sort of thing that I actually would like in the Dumble clones, and like finding a drive channel that has a little bit of give to it, has a little bit of sag, that has something of this going on with it. It's a very complicated pedal in terms of it's got lots of different switches to work with lots of different amps. It's heavy, it's big. I've gigged it once actually. It feels amazing under the fingers. I think it sounds really good. It's the feel which is maybe slightly different. He has reissued these now because you weren't able to get these last time I did a video on them. He's reissued them. They're in a slightly smaller enclosure, and I think slightly easier to power. That's the other bad thing with this. 9 volts, you need 650 milliamps. 12 volts, you need 450. But if you're looking for like the daddy of the Dumble clones, then I think the Royal Overdrive is a good choice. Honourable mention to Ethos pedals, because they do some interesting stuff in this area too. I just don't have one, so can't really talk about it. As a suitable alternative to the Royal Overdrive, I think 2016 the Dude came out. I couldn't find it. It was actually on my shelf behind some other pedals. This one, I think, in terms of tone, is quite similar to the Royal Overdrive. There's the HRM as well, which I actually ended up using in the video. The Dude or the HRM, to me, are really good choices because they are small. They're not that difficult to get hold of. They're not terribly overpriced. I think if you buy one used, you could get them for about 100 and 120 quid. They're great sound pedals to me. They're quite compressed, easily get into that sort of like singing Dumble territory. But more than that as well, they both have essentially like this top end or treble control, so it's really easy to dial in kind of that smooth stuff, or if you want it more biting, turn that back up. As well, you've got control of the bottom end, so you've got like this shaping of both ends of the spectrum so that you can kind of narrow in on what it is that you're looking for. So I would say the Dude and the HRM, of the sort of mass-produced available pedals, to me are like my top pick. I think it might have been Brian Wampler who designed this PCB for J Rockett. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I think possibly. From what I've read online, it is somewhat Zendrive-esque, but with something else. I think they called it like a gyrator or an exciter or something like that, but sort of in that Zendrive vein. But I would say this definitely has way more gain than a Zendrive, quite a lot more sort of sustain, that sort of stuff. Maybe a bit more body, maybe a bit darker. back to the boutique stuff. This is a 5-watt World Barber collaboration, the BUSS, the BUSS. So this is quite a cool pedal in terms of, he's got both the other ones on my pedal board. This is the higher gain version. But to me, this is definitely in that vein. If you flip to the right, that's kind of ODS based, and if you flip to the left, it's Blues Breaker based. So I kind of like it for that flexibility, and also the Blues Breaker circuit is something that John Mayer, you know, has used. So on like the Gravity tune. So I don't think this is actually a Blues Breaker circuit, but designed to be sort of in that vein of the actual Blues Breaker amp sound. In any case, this works for a great bunch of things. I think live I tend to use the Blues Breaker side more, but if you want those singing Dumble lead tones, that is basically what that side of the circuit is for, and you know, that's what Keith's into, and David Barber as well. I'm not exactly sure when they came out with the initial Burn unit, but Joe Satriani had used the Burn unit. Yeah, it's a great sustaining sort of pedal. I think other honourable mentions that I should make, there are some preamps with real tubes in them from companies like Tubesteader. Also there's Kingsley. So those might be a really good bet if you're looking for like a proper tube preamp. I think Synergy do a module as well, right? Mad Professor with the Symbol in 2014 came out with one. I mean, that's the starting point. This roughly, I think there's a Dumb Kudo as well, which I tried briefly. There's a lot of stuff in this vein. A lot of them, I think, are sort of Zendrive based. The Royal Overdrive is definitely sort of in its own lane for being complex, heavy, and hard to power. But I think that one to me stands out as being the most different in terms of feel. But yeah, I'd say these are my options anyway. Let other folks know in the comments if you've got some other suggestions. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of shout out some of these pedals. Cheers for stopping by. Oh, and that's the other thing. Important, I think, if you're wondering about this sound in general, the bridge pickup of the Les Paul or ES335 is really, I think, quite a lot of where this tone comes from. So it's about not having something that's super sort of nasal in the neck pickup. Switch to that bridge pickup for that brightness, and that is kind of one of the areas where the HRM and the Dude can kind of be nice, because you can actually then thicken it back up with the body. And if you listen to like Larry Colton as well, I think it tends to be quite a lot of bridge pickup stuff. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers.